If they're up in the willows, I love pitching and flipping too. Just depends on what they're doing. I just like catching them. I don't care how, I just like catching them. Got them. Hey everyone, Justin Russell with RussellMarineProducts.com. Today we're out on beautiful El Dorado Lake. It is June, middle of June, summertime here on the lake. Today I want to go over the most underutilized, undervalued accessory for the Garmin Livescope. I'm talking about the Perspective Mode mount. Now, this mount has helped me personally put a lot more fish in the boat, and we've won some tournaments out here in El Dorado Lake exclusively because of the Perspective Mode mount. I want to show you today what I've done with it to help put more fish in the boat. So let's get started. Got him. Good largemouth. That's a 3.5 pounder. Well, bam. Thanks, buddy. All right, everyone, we're out here in beautiful El Dorado Lake. Want to showcase 3 different scenarios on this lake that Perspective Mode has helped me put more fish in the boat, ultimately win a tournament on it, and hopefully it'll help you guys too next time you're out on the water. One scenario I do want to discuss is here. We've got flooded conditions, and it's just the time of year we've got a bunch of rain. So the lake's up 3.5, 4 feet here, so we'll pan around here in a second and show you the shoreline so you can kind of actually see how high it is. But one of the things I wanted to show very first off is in Perspective Mode, this will actually help you find more structure, at least for me, oftentimes before you ever come over it. So if you're running traditional 2D sonar or down imaging, oftentimes you're not going to find structure until you're already on top of it and past it. And in a shallow water application like what we're doing here, I'm throwing a crankbait over some shallow rock piles. That's going to be paramount to actually hit them before the boat goes over the top of them and ultimately ends up spooking the fish. So I'm going to go down the bank line here. Now, also the other interesting thing is even at normal level, you have no idea these rock piles exist unless you found them with side imaging traditionally by idling around, or in our case, finding them with Perspective Mode here. A lot of times it's only going to add an extra fish or two to the live well, but man, that's a huge difference on today's wood tournaments and how tight everything can be and how competitive everyone is. So we're going to buzz down the bank here, and I'm going to show you what is located off the shore, off the bank, off the beaten path here that oftentimes goes unnoticed or overlooked unless you have Perspective Mode. So let's get started. All right, so we're in 11 feet of water. Normally this is 6.5 to 7 feet right here, and we're starting to get shallower so you can see. During the summertime, this time of year, I think it's really important to be able to cover the areas like flats, especially with topwater. If the lake was down a little bit, I would throw topwater across this stuff all day long. But look at this giant rock pile we've got here, located in about 8 feet of water as we come up to here. Again, you're setting up, we're 40 feet away from it right now. You have the ability to make casts on that structure before you end up coming up to it. Another thing that's very important that I really like is I've got our Perspective Mode and Livescope mounted to the head of the trolling motor. Now, why is that important, especially in shallow water applications? I can sit here and rotate around to find the other structure before we hit to it. You can see basically up here, we're finding the edge of the old bank line where it starts dropping off and the rocks actually start breaking up. So instead of having a solid rock or a solid gravel bank, we actually can see where the rocks are starting to break up. So you're gonna find more crawfish, more crevices, more places for them to hide. Again, ultimately putting more fish in the water. See, we're in 6 feet of water right now, coming up on more rock. We're, I don't know, 50 feet off the bank right now. Even at normal pool, unless you know this is air, unless you idle past it with side imaging, it's going to make it a little bit difficult to find unless you're really, really observant on your 2D sonar and your down imaging. But again, by that point, you've already moved across it. There's some more rock coming up here. Now we're just getting up onto some big rock and gravel with some bigger rocks located off to our left. Again, it can help you find the structure, fish more efficiently. We're getting ready. We're going to pull up the trolling motor here and we're going to run to a second area, and this actually is an area that I was able to find kind of on my own, and more importantly find out exactly what it is because of Perspective Mode. So we're going to show up this other area. You guys are definitely going to want to see this on Perspective Mode and get a good gander at it. All right guys, the second area is an area that was really, really important to me. I've always known that there's this house foundation area here on this side of the lake, and I haven't ever been able to find it. And in doing so, I pulled up to this point on the map. It's a nothing looking point. It's just a rounded point, but I noticed there's kind of a rock pile literally right on the bank. Now again, the water's up 3.5, 4 feet, so it's really difficult to see, especially now you won't. You're just gonna see some willow trees in the water. But with perspective mode, I was able to actually see that that rock continued on out. And the interesting thing, I'll pull it up here, it's an old fence row. Now, the cool thing about this is a stone fence from like way long ago, late 1800s, early 1900s. You can actually start to see it come up in the view here. You can actually see there's some fish on it right now. But the interesting thing about this that again, I was able to use with perspective mode, we're following it down the bank. I can see where it goes in the water here. When I get a little bit further out and start following it down, you're actually gonna see not only where it makes a hard bend to the north and makes a 90-degree turn, you can actually see an area right here where it's blown out. So you basically, the fence is kind of fallen down, you can see where it's silted in a little bit, and then we start picking up the fence. And now, more importantly, as we continue on here, you're gonna see it come up. The fence starts to pick up again, and now it's gonna start to make that hard 90. So as you look up here, you can see where it makes that 100 or 90-degree bend. You can see where it's kind of blown out a little bit there. You've got some rocks. You've got a really good two funnel points here, basically. One, right where the fence has the break on the straight edge, and then right where it makes the 90, you can see another break. So being able to be out here and being able to see where that difference is, you can see the opening literally just a slight bit off to the left of us, about 30 feet out or so. You can see those are where the fish are going to use that funnel point to move up the lake, whether it's up into the spawning cove out here or back out into the creek channel. Now again, the lake's 3.5, 4 feet up, so this is typically a lot shallower. So the fish have no problem now being able to go over any part of that fence row that they want. This perspective mode, although it's super handy in shallow water, and what I mean by shallow water, 15 feet or less, it's really not that good in deep water at all. Another thing I want to note here too, for the sake of screen recording, we've got this on an 8612 XSV unit, so I do have a 2D sonar plugged into this. It's a GT56, so I'll do 2D sonar side imaging and down imaging. So it does give us a depth here while being on perspective mode. For you guys running like a 1022 or 1222, you're not gonna get an accurate depth reading at all on perspective mode because it's utilizing out of the side of the transducer versus out of the bottom when you're in traditional forward view for Livescope. So again, we've got that fence right here. You can see some areas. I'm coming up here. The broken area is literally right ahead of the trolling motor right now. You can see that there's actually a fish a little bit on the right-hand side beginning to move through that area. And then over here on the left-hand side, again, you can see the area where it makes a hard 90 and completely shuts down. The last area I want to show you is a nothing-looking bank. Again, I know the lake's up 3.5, 4 feet, so it looks like nothing anyway. But at normal pool, this point doesn't look like anything. Now, it is kind of impressive on the map for one of the reasons why I ran over to it. But I was utterly disappointed when Eddie and I shut down and it was just a mud bank. And what we ended up finding out was because of perspective mode view, we wanted to fish it anyway, we found a ton of rock. And literally in 15 minutes, Eddie and I caught a ton of fish, ended up winning the tournament out of this because of perspective mode again. Being able to see what's beneath the water in real time, accurate, and finding out where the bigger rock was on this point was crucial because any other point, and it looked just like every other point running up this creek as well, just mud, look like mud points. So I want to run next. We're going to show you that just so you guys have an idea of exactly what that looks like. And again, seeing where those differences are when it comes to structure and perspective mode and how it can help you put more fish in the boat. This is an area, it is impressive on the map. It's a nice, flat, long tapering point that comes out, but it looks like mud. So when you run past it, every creek in here is a mud point, mud creek area. It's actually at the mouth of a very large feeder creek that comes in. But anyway, I saw a culvert here that you can't see now because again, the lake's up 4 feet. But what you will be able to see is all the rock down there. And literally in 15 minutes, we were able to put fish in the boat and ended up winning the tournament because of off this one spot, all because we had perspective mode. Now, the important thing is although we're seeing a lot of gravel and you're seeing chunk rock here, when we scan further out, you're gonna see some more boulders further out and fish. You can see there's a fish actually moving across the screen from the left to right there as well. But I'm gonna keep moving us around here and show you what this point really, there's another fish moving right there. Here you can see the rock that again is further out away from the point. And this is where we actually started catching our fish, was off of this chunk rock out here. You can see there's some deeper stuff out here off to the right as we're starting to zoom out. Again, we're only in 5 feet of water, but we're almost 100 feet off the bank right here right now. Again, this normally has like 1.5 feet, 2 feet of water on it, so a really long tapering point. But without perspective mode, without really stopping and dropping that, I just would have been fishing a lot further out, and I would have realized at that time I would have had to have found the rock with a lure or with side imaging and idling it. but I was actually going up towards the underwater culvert that you can't see to try to fish the mouth of the culvert, and ended up running across all the rock. And in that moment, we started fishing the rock and started catching smallmouth. So, all right, guys, that's 3 areas on El Dorado Lake I've shown you. I've given you a couple secrets, a couple of my honey holes that I found over time. But again, found them with perspective mode mount. Again, for $100, $99.99. I don't know why you guys with Livescope wouldn't have one on your boat, especially if you're bass fishermen. Man, holy cow, you can see brim bed spawning right after the spawn, so you know where the bass are hanging around. A really amazing tool when utilized correctly that can help you find more structure and ultimately more fish. Again, for me and most people out there, it's gonna be a shallow water application. This is 12, 15 feet and shallower. You're seeing structure, you're coming up on structure, you're seeing it before you get to it and find it with your down imaging or side imaging or your 2D sonar, where you got to spin back around, possibly disturb the area and spook fish off before you even have a chance to get a cast on them. So be sure to check these out, russellmarineproducts.com. Click the link below, takes you directly to our website. Make sure you get a perspective mode today on your Livescope unit.